3 years ago when Cyberpunk released, I posted my final Cyberpunk video in which I said this: the bugs will be patched over time and the game will be considered a masterpiece. We are now at this point and it is officially no longer cool to hate Cyberpunk. Yay! So since I originally started this channel to cover Cyberpunk, I'm making this video for all my OGs who I'm sure are still among the measly 5k views I now get. It's kind of funny to reflect on this time. I started this channel by doing a bunch of those generic
"Oh my god, huge Jason Schreier info dump, Jason Schreier reveals crazy Jason Schreier insider secrets by Jason Schreier"
videos in the year and a half prior to the release. The game was set to be one of those endless gold mines like Skyrim, and there were a bunch of channels trying to hop on the trend early and establish a presence in the community to hopefully milk it for years to come. Some of these guys did like almost daily uploads in a time when we would get a crumb of new info maybe once every 3 months. The desperation was palpable as countless white boys overanalyzed trailers and pretended that every frame was hiding some secret message because CDPR definitely had time to add all that because the game was already polished to perfection and their employees were just itching for more work. It's a silly time for me to think back on, and I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. CDPR really had everything going for them at that point, didn't they? It was a perfect storm of passion for their Witcher games, especially the third one, together with community worship for not actively scamming us like some of these other studios, as well as peak disdain for the prevalence of said anti-consumer studios on the market. The hype was a crazy thing to witness and be a part of. I remember the night the first E3 trailer dropped, I watched it a bunch of times and then had to go out, so I downloaded it to my phone to watch on repeat on my way back. I've never before or since exhibited such nerd emoji behavior. And then the game dropped and you could hear gaming's brittle knees buckle for one last time as gamers wept over broken promises and dreams unfulfilled. My faith in the AAA gaming industry was broken, but I don't regret getting hyped about the game because you have one little measly life. What is the point of not allowing yourself to feel excitement? I kept getting people telling me to temper my expectations back then, and even back then I thought it was so stupid. I just wanted to be excited about something, bro. Like, I knew the game wasn't gonna live up to every single one of my expectations, and honestly I think no amount of expectation tampering would have spared me the disappointment because the launch and everything leading up to it was just so utterly abysmal. I was more disappointed that my fellow Slav kings, who I thought were the last beacon of hope sticking it to corporate Amerikansky greed, lied so much to sell broken products than I was at missing features in the game. But you already know everything that happened. I'm not here to chronicle the whole debacle. I'm here because I was always gonna be here, baby. After a good chunk of my time on YouTube dedicated to this game, I waited for the right time to circle back around to it. Over these 3 years, I installed the game on a whim many times only to not even launch it and uninstall it like a month later. But recently, for the first time ever, I finally just felt like playing some Cyberpunk. And out of all the boring critiques and video essays I watched about it, it was a minute-long video of a cool ninja run that got me. There's always a prevalent theme in my epic video game observations, that I am a simple man with an actual monkey brain. Dozens of hours of video essays and countless uses of the word fundamental cannot do for me what a simple 1-minute clip of an epic ninja thing does. I fucking love ninjas, okay? Blame Naruto. So I feel like the fact that I got so sick of hearing about Johnny freaking Silverhand,
impressive cock,
Pan freaking Am, Judy V, and all the other things that were overshared by the studio even before the game launched kind of goes in my favor. I didn't really bother learning about specific details in the game like the skill tree or driving mechanics, and I never kept up with what changed in the game, so I'm just experiencing it as if it launched like this. The only frame of reference I have is my own video that I showed in the beginning, and that was mostly me bitching about the performance on the supposed recommended graphics card, which a game like this was never gonna run on. By the way, I completely forgot that amongst a fucking scandalous amount of Cyberpunk themed products they sold before the game even released was a custom Cyberpunk Xbox One X that you couldn't even play it on. Like, holy shit. That is up there amongst the top scum moves by gaming companies. There is one feature in the game though that in my eyes fully redeems CDPR, and it's such a coincidence that I found it while recording footage for this video. They now let you order the sickest streetwear clothing inspired by Japanese mythology and art from today's sponsor Project Orochi. I don't take a lot of sponsors, but these guys were a no-brainer. They got these delicate sort of ethereal designs that you really gotta zoom in to appreciate all the subtle detail. Like my absolute favorite, this power suit design with the ghosting effect. Ugh, get out of here. Or this grainy sort of glow on the Torment tee. Ridiculous. A lot of their designs are inspired by video games like Sekiro or Dark Souls, and come on, anything inspired by Dark Souls goes super hard by default. Not all of their stuff is video game inspired. They got really cool original concepts and all of them are just a vibe, man. They didn't tell me to say this, but it's gonna get you some dates. I can personally guarantee you that. Best thing is they offer free shipping in North America, and if you go to projectorochi.com/chromerot and use the code FUNDAMENTAL, yes, really, that is the word I requested, you'll get 10% off your entire order. Go to their website or their Instagram page to see more of these for yourself, since I couldn't even pack all of my favorites into this segment, and cop yourself some new drip. Back to the video. So let's get into my thoughts about the actual game now. The best thing about Cyberpunk is that Cyberpunk is Cyberpunk. It's not a Souls-like Skyrim in space GTA with Fallout shooting and The Witcher 3 writing and also Breath of the Wild for some reason set in the universe of Blade Runner. Of course, every game that wasn't made in like the 80s stands on the shoulders of other games and media. Every piece of art in general was inspired by something. But there has never been a truly iconic game that you could most easily describe as a mix of other games. Cyberpunk has its own unmistakable DNA. You can immediately tell you're looking at Cyberpunk from any random screenshot you see from some room or alleyway. All assets in the game, from the NPCs to the objects scattered around the world, has a specific shine to it, a specific scale compared to the rest of the area. I used to work as a graphic designer, and words like branding or design language kept getting thrown around all the time, but true understanding of these terms was what differentiated the top 1% from the rest. I wouldn't say this is the same thing as style, but I also wouldn't know how to explain the difference. There's just a satisfying kind of cohesion to this world, despite hundreds of different people working on it. I wasn't sure how I felt about Cyberpunk's visual direction initially, seeing stuff like the car designs, or especially the fashion in Night City. Like, what are those? Am I right? A lot of 2077's vision of how the future looks is retro-futuristic in a way. It's not the typical direction you'd expect from a cyberpunk-themed piece of media, most of which is trying to predict this crazy dystopian future of our current world, rather than having the balls to just invent one in which Converse is not outdated 53 years from now. But as the 44th incarnation of Siddhartha Gautama once said, it just works. The cars fit the world as if they were really a product of the development of its technology that happened to go slightly different than ours. And the variety of your clothing options in itself is just bonkers. You can make your V look like a Vegas stripper if you want to, or you can make him look like a stripper from Ohio. Basically, you got lots of variety within the stripper umbrella. This cohesion and unique design language is a hugely underappreciated thing, and it brings me to, ladies and gentlemen, what you've all been waiting for. Tangent. I love retro games, pixel art, the PS2 aesthetic. And I mean love in a way that I overwhelm my brain by thinking about all the old games I want to explore, to the point where I don't play any because if I play one, I would be missing out on the others, and so I just usually end up collapsed in bed with smoke coming out of my head. But there's something about new games that use this aesthetic that makes them feel capped. Like, there's automatically a ceiling you can reach if you decide to follow someone else's footsteps. The game might be fucking fantastic, but it can never become iconic in its own right. I still had so much fun with Bomb Rush. Watch my video. And there's probably over 100 retro indie games I'm super excited about. Watch my video. But the reason you can instantly picture a silhouette of Michael Jackson is not because he dressed like James Brown. He took the glove, the fedora, the socks, the and made it iconic. It's not just about popularity either. Genshin is like the most popular game ever. I think it looks great, and I still wouldn't consider it iconic. Of course, it's not reasonable to expect every game to look unique, but it's a super underrated facet of game ideation, and something that I feel like a lot of indie devs don't even think about. And the idea is like 90% of the product. I think Undertale did the retro thing right, managing to have its own unmistakable aesthetic while also looking like a Game Boy game. That gray horror visual novel that recently came out, you know what I'm talking about? If you've seen the game, you probably know what I'm talking about. Even though I can't even remember its name, that's kind of what it means to be iconic. And that's another game that came to mind as an example. Anyways, Cyberpunk's world is easily the best open world ever created. The only large city that actually gets the sense of scale right. And this is one thing I never doubted. This guy, I always trusted him for some reason. On the day the game released, the only thing I could confidently say was a true boundary-defining achievement was its world. Now, however, as a fuller, more polished package, it shines even brighter. There really is no other game out right now that looks this good. I fell into a rabbit hole of Starfield comparisons, and even though I don't think what held Starfield back was its graphics, the difference is comical. There are countless Unreal Engine demos that look way ahead of Cyberpunk 2, which is why I couldn't really give a shit about a pretty world with everything in it broken at launch. Only now that the game actually works can you really appreciate how CDPR set to push boundaries and move the industry standards up into true next-gen territory. This realization really only unlocked for me when I got the double jump. Before this point, I wasn't even sure I was enjoying the game. Cyberpunk becomes exponentially more fun with each new movement mechanic you unlock. Double jump, movement speed upgrades, dashes. I understand why they had to scrap the Mantis Blade climbing thing, but I just wish I could have experienced a game like this designed around such freedom of movement. Parkouring, jumping on ledges, dashing across rooftops in this big city is just pure joy, especially with all the verticality of Night City and the countless nooks you can find. Baby, I wasn't trying to reference my Mirror's Edge video again. It just keeps happening organically. Watch my video. Cyberpunk on launch was like an upside down pyramid. Without the solid foundations, everything built on top collapses. It's kind of silly to even pay attention to detail when the basics are missing. And I'm not talking about bugs, but things like a non-existent police system, NPCs moving in straight lines back and forth, traffic completely grinding to a halt because a trash can was in the way. You already know. The biggest thing that put me off was this impression that there is no way they could have added the same amount of world-defining detail that The Witcher 3 had, for example, if they didn't even have the basics down. Playing it now, I'm still not sure where I stand on this. There is a lot of detail in this game, so I was definitely wrong in a sense, but the Red Dead kind of interactivity that makes it feel alive is still missing. Character animations. Nobody ever talks about this. Now, I am internet gamer opinion boy, but I'm no industry expert. But it seems to me like this would be a pretty tedious and time-consuming process to animate hundreds, if not thousands of movements, whether it's scripted cutscenes, NPCs pissing themselves on the floor, or player actions. If I tell you to imagine The Witcher 3 dialogue, do you immediately see Geralt hitting the shruggy? Yeah, and The Witcher 3 did a pretty decent job at the animations too, but Cyberpunk takes it to the next level, which is pretty damn impressive for a city so big and dense. This is a thing that the more a game has it, the easier it becomes to not even notice it. Character movements and even facial animations are so subtle and fluid that they just feel natural, or at least as natural as it currently gets in video games. Like I mentioned earlier, prior to even playing this game, I had already had enough of Johnny Silverhand, Judy Panam, etc. I think it's a combination of they showed too much prior to the release, including fucking best character Jackie's death for some reason, and being part of the community that was echoing the same names and same bits of story we got over and over again until it became painful to listen to. This is actually a big part of why I was put off of giving the game a proper go. I'd already had enough of these people and their their corny ass lingo. By the way, I'm not sure how much of the lingo was unique to the game and how much was taken from Mike Pondsmith's original work, but either way, the guy created the shit in the 80s, like Choomba was never gonna be cool in 2024. I do like gonk though. Gonk actually sounds like it could be a slang word. However, I was possibly the most surprised by how good the characters and story were. Like, this was something I was expecting to be good because The Witcher 3 really set a new bar for video game writing, but Cyberpunk's setting is a complete 180 and I wasn't sure if the team was gonna pull it off. And to give them credit, they did. The writing in terms of the actual core of it is fantastic and the character is compelling. Now, maybe I'm just a hater-ass bitch, but some of the dialogue still sounds corny. I'm playing as male V, and number one, the lines are just so ridiculous sometimes, and number two, the voice actor is probably the only voice in the game that I feel like was not a good pick. And nobody seems to agree with me. Like, the man's cadence is just off.
He will not do that. He's a man of honor.
Right, because Arasaka's ranks are chock full of those.
It sounds like he's way far removed from the type of life that V is supposed to lead. I've felt that way since the trailers and I still feel that way. Man just does not sound street, especially when coupled with the witty one-liners that no actual street gangster would ever even conceive of, let alone say out loud. Like, not a single person who's genuinely scary and badass would go like, "Riddle me this, you gonk spunk. Who's a good little mama's boy who's gonna run back to his mama for some milk after I kick his ass? Yup, it's you." The final thing I want to touch on that feels surprisingly good is the combat. Like I said in the beginning, the ninja clip is what got me into the game, and now that I've finally been able to play through some of the story and level up enough to not feel like a worm, most of what I do is run around town clearing out gangs of gonk goons in cool ways. I never really got to try out things like shooting or vehicle handling in the beginning, but the way the combat feels now is way more meaty and satisfying than I expected. I remember hating how the katana combat looked in the gameplay showcases. Playing it, I actually fucking love it. The runs you can get with throwing knives, a revolver, and a katana tickle just the right part of my balls. Dismemberment is fun, cyberware is cool, deflecting bullets is orgasmic. Combat overall is fun enough to keep distracting me from the main quests, and I feel like that says a lot. YouTube really is the only thing I want to do. It's my dream job. My lovely patrons make it more sustainable. So if you want to join them, patreon.com/Chromera. And thank you so much for today's sponsor. I don't take many sponsors because I usually don't like the products, but I did like their clothing. So go check them out. Join the Discord so that I can notify you when I upload because the algorithm hates me, and kisses on the teeth.